So, why is strength training so important, especially for someone with low bone density? It's the missing component, usually, of a fitness program. When we get older, sadly, so many of us develop what's called sarcopenia, where we lose muscle mass and increase fat. The good news is by adding strength training, adding resistance training, using bands, using hand weights, we can reverse that. We can increase our muscle mass. When we increase our muscle mass, that helps our metabolism, which will help with weight control. But most importantly, if we have strong muscles, we're going to have strong bones, and when our muscles are strong, that's going to decrease our risk of falling. So many times people fall because they haven't been adding strength training to their fitness routine, and the muscles just are not providing enough support to have good balance. All the research shows that it's the strength training which increases our bone density. When we strength train, when we use our hand weights, we create force through the bone. This causes our bone building cells, our osteoblasts, to do their job. It's that strength training that will help us build bones. Of course, in addition, it will help our agility, balance, and coordination. We want to start with light weights. Even if you've been exercising for a long time, once you have a diagnosis of osteoporosis, start with a light weight. Make sure your form is good and slowly increase the weight. We want to always use the heaviest weight that we can safely use. So you would never go from a 1 or 2 pound hand weight to a 10 pound. Go up in very small increments. How do you know what weight to start with? It's trial and error, and it's going to be different for everyone. I can't say, oh, you have to start with a 3 pound or a 5 pound because everyone's at a different age. Everyone has different comorbidities. Some people have been exercising all their life. Some people have never picked up a hand weight. So it's trial and error as to what weight you begin with. If you can perform 10 repetitions of the exercise and you feel like you've done nothing, that weight is too light. So you just keep experimenting with what weight gives you some fatigue in that muscle group that you should start to feel somewhere between the fifth, sixth, or seventh repetition. And if you can complete the 10 repetitions in the set and feel fatigue, then that's my good starting weight. You should never feel pain. You should never feel discomfort. You always listen to your body. And once you can do a set, then and you feel nothing, then you move up in weight. So you want to do a variety of different strength training exercises, all really a program that only gives you 7 exercises is not sufficient. It's a good start, and it's important to do some of the basic foundational strength training exercises, but we want to be smart and practical. We use our body in so many different ways. We have so many muscles in the body to keep strong. We don't want to just do 5 or 7 exercises. What about the other muscles? We don't want to create imbalances. So we want to strengthen all the major muscle groups. We move different planes of motion. We want to be strong in everything that we do so we don't get injured and we can really perform our activities of daily living easily and be comfortable. So I do believe in varying the exercises, and we have to learn to modify exercises given where you're starting from. Um, so, we're going to now actually perform some of the exercises, and we're going to concentrate on alignment. But, do keep in mind that if you've fractured previously, you should be, extremely careful in what you're doing. And I do advise that it's a good idea to start with a individual session with an exercise specialist to make sure that your technique is perfect. So that's very important for people who have previously fractured, not so much for those who have not fractured, but of course, technique is always important. So let's stand up and we'll actually start to do some of the basic strength training exercises. So I just have my chair out here as a visual. And how do we know if we're ready to even perform a squat? One way to determine this is, can you sit to stand by using your legs? Can you sit to stand? We don't want to be one of the people who is sitting at a dinner table and needs to push off on the chair to get into a standing position. So let's go over the squat. It should be done with the legs slightly wider than hip distance apart. We start to bend the knees a little bit. I'm crossing my arms over to get them out of the picture. And I'll tell you why in just a second. We're going to sit down, make believe you're actually sitting in a chair, and come back up to standing. I have my hands in this position because often, people will just kind of swing their arms, and we want to really get a lot of weight bearing through the body. We want the muscles in the lower body to work. If we kind of push ourselves up like that, it won't be as effective. So let's bend the knees, push your hips back like you're sitting in a chair. As you come up, you should have most of your weight distributed through the heel. In our typical program, we'll start with one set of 10 repetitions. For today's class, we won't necessarily do a full set. I really want to give you just a little taste of what would be considered a good, safe strength training program. When you do your squat, you would not want to do anything that looks like this. And we come down and then do this. We see that a lot. We want to make sure that we're in good alignment from head to tailbone, which means if I go like this and I start to drop the head down and round the back, we want to avoid that rounding of the back. We don't also, another thing we see sometimes is something like this, and then kind of bringing the knees forward. So just think about pushing the hips back, straight line from head to tailbone, and back up to standing. If your knees are not at their best, start off with a half squat. Bottom line, you do not do anything that hurts. Listen to your body. All right, now, what we find oftentimes is a lot of people wind up sitting, maybe watching TV at dinner, and they are called to do something, their name is yelled out, they get up and fall down. The next exercise is going to strengthen the muscles to help prevent that from happening and will also create a lot of force through the bone, which is what we're trying to accomplish to get those bones denser. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our squat. Okay, so make believe we're sitting down, and then we're going to go into either a front step for those who have bad knees, back, or a front lunge. Our goal would be to go from a squat, stand up, front lunge, where we bend both knees, push back, go back into your squat, come back to standing, switch legs. Okay, so from the side, squat, front lunge, push back, squat, the other leg, front lunge. So you just make your modifications. Let's say your balance is not what you would like it to be. Hold on to the chair with one hand. Squat to front lunge. Squat to front lunge. We'll do just two more. So we want to make our exercises safe, effective, practical, relating to something that we do in our everyday life. Which brings us to the component of strength training called functional fitness, using our body, strengthening it the way we would in everyday life. So we build muscle, we build bone, and we learn to do things safely, preventing fractures, particularly vertebral fractures. So let's hold on to two hand weights and we'll perform the next exercise called the deadlift. Okay, so we're going to hold on to hand weights. I'm just showing you the exercise now with light hand weights for demonstration purposes. Again, you would always want to use the heaviest weight that you can safely use. Okay, so my knees are soft. This is the deadlift, also known as a hip hinge. So we are going to start to come forward. We push the hips back and use the legs to come back to standing. Notice when I'm hinging from the hips, I'm in a straight line. This is an important move to do. So when you're lifting something, you want to keep the spine straight. What we do not want to do is hip hinge and then look at that rounded back, lifting, very, very, very dangerous. So think about when you do your deadlift or you're lifting, you're in a straight line from head to tailbone. So let's combine our squat and our deadlift so we could safely lift up a child, our grandchildren, a pet, our laundry, groceries. We keep our legs a little wider than we had them before. Arms in front. It's a combination squat deadlift, basically. Just push those hips back, hip hinge, and lift. And again, we're going to squat, push your hips back. Deadlift means hip hinge and lift. Squat, deadlift, and lift. We'll do a few more. Now, let's say you're doing this and you don't feel that you're using your legs. Let's start to contract the glutes as you come up. And once you start using heavier weights, I would also want you to keep the abdominals in. We'll do one more. Okay. So we did a lot of standing exercises. So we have our weight bearing. We need to do exercises in a standing position if possible. So we do get the weight bearing. We're going to now move on to some important posture exercises. Not only will they help us maintain good posture, but we'll be strengthening some of the muscles in the upper back. And one of the exercises which I feel is great for strengthening the upper back, when the upper back muscles are strong, it's going to keep you in good alignment. Once the upper back gets weak, we start coming in like this. But if we keep the upper back strong, it helps us keep our shoulders in line where they should be, ears over the shoulders. All right, let's go into that hip hinge position. Okay, so we're in a straight line from head to tailbone. And we're going to do a straight arm raise side to side. So basically, you're looking down at the floor so that you can be in a straight line. And you think about lifting that weight up from the upper back. I'll always say, let's put our minds into the muscle that we're trying to strengthen. Straight arm raise. Using light weights to start. We'll do one more on each side. Okay. And there are hundreds of various upper spine and posture strengthening exercises that we perform. Let's use our flat band or resistance band for another posture exercise. Okay, so in addition to hand weights, resistance bands are very good to use. I love them because if you're at work and you have some time, you can do something at your office. If you're traveling, they're very easy to take with you wherever you might be going. And they come in different strengths. There's light, medium, and heavy. So I do recommend that you purchase a set. Of course, we would start with the lightest one and then hopefully graduate to a medium resistance band. There are also loop bands which have handles. I'm sorry, loop bands, which look like this, which we use for a lot of our hip strengthening and upper body exercises, and the ones with handles, which are resistance equipment too, but they're very comfortable to use. And as you can see, some are very, very light resistance, very easy to pull apart, and some are a little thicker and heavier to pull apart. All right, so let's do a posture exercise using our flat band. We're going to bring the arms up. We're going to gently pull apart. Bring the band behind the head, draw the elbows down, bring it back up. Pull apart. We want that band behind the head. Don't bring the head forward. Pull apart, band behind the head. One more time. Great. Okay. So we're going to now bring our screens down to the floor so I can show you how to safely strengthen our core, our abdominal muscles. Okay. So, if one has osteoporosis, there are certain exercises that we should not perform. Research has shown us years ago that by performing forward flexion, which means something that looks like this. Notice I'm coming forward and my back is so rounded. Forward flexion would be something like a abdominal crunch or something like a roll up or a sit up. My back is rounded. We have to avoid that. And the reason for that is because when we are rounding the back forward, as we get older, we typically have less cushion in between the vertebra. And with osteoporosis, if the backbones, the vertebra are soft, when you go into those positions, the two vertebrae are actually going to touch each other, creating a potential vertebral fracture. So we want to avoid those type of moves, forward flexion. The other thing to avoid is twisting. And I like to call it extreme twisting because too many people that I've worked with through the 30 years, they've read that you can't twist, and then they walk around completely stiff. So I like to say no extreme twisting. Okay, so meaning, we have to be able to move side to side to do whatever we want to do, to drive. So an extreme twist to me would be something where maybe I went all the way around a 180, and in our everyday life, we really don't need to do anything that extreme, and especially any twisting carrying a heavy load. Okay, so if we can't do our crunches, our roll-ups, our sit-ups, if we can't do forward flexion, we need to learn how to safely strengthen the abdominals. So let's do the following. We're going to lie down and start. We're not going to do a regular crunch. We'll do a reverse crunch. Now, if you have not exercised in a long time, I'd like you to do one leg at a time. We're going to exhale, navel to spine, bring one leg up. If you feel that's way too easy for you, or you have been exercising, bring both legs up and back down. Try to exhale as you bring the belly button towards the spine so you can really feel the abdominals working. Nice big exhale and inhale down. When you do this, sometimes we find that people start to only use the legs. Try to think about your legs being out of the picture. They're sleeping. You exhale gently, press down, almost like a pelvic tilt, and bring the legs up. All right. Another basic exercise is a dolphin kick where we bring the knees in, straighten the legs up. Again, if you are fairly inactive, I'd like you to just bring the legs down a little bit and bring the knees back up. Back in. Straighten the legs up. Exhale, navel to spine. Inhale. When you do this, you can bring them halfway down. I wouldn't want you bringing them much lower. That could be a potential strain on the lower back. Inhale, exhale, navel to spine. Okay. So, a lot of people love Pilates, as do I, and I teach it. But if you are participating in a Pilates or a yoga class, please go up to your instructor and tell them that you have osteoporosis and make sure they give you the appropriate modifications for those two systems. So for example, there are, say, Pilates type of exercises that we modify. For example, we can bring both legs up for beginners, pure beginners. We keep the knees bent and we do a circle, corkscrew type of thing, inhaling and exhale, navel to spine. Those of you who know that your abdominals are a little stronger, we're going to keep those legs straighter. And as you progress, you can even go larger. We start with a nice big inhale, pressing the abdominals down as we complete the circle. So there's a lot of modifications that we can do for these wonderful core exercises. All right. So, in the beginning of this session, we did some exercises that would focus in on some of our upper back muscles. What about towards the lower part of the back? As I mentioned, it's important to get every part of the body strong. We don't want to create imbalances. We want to get stronger. And the best way of doing that is with exercises that do hit every major muscle group. In terms of the frequency of strength training, 2 to 3 times a week would really be ideal to get the best results. So let's do our basic healthy back exercise. I'm sure a lot of you have performed this, either physical therapy or exercise classes. The bird dog, I want to make sure that you're doing it properly for results. So we bring the leg out with the opposite arm. The problem is, though, what we see a lot of times is that knee bend. We want to activate the glute. So let's make sure you feel the glute contracted and bring it back down. Try the other arm, opposite leg. Try to get that leg parallel to the floor, straight leg. Don't bend that knee. Hold that position and back down. Let's go to the other side. So if the knee is bent, we won't get the best results. As we get stronger, again, we add some hand weight, some resistance to the exercise. One more on each side. Let's now go onto our stomachs for back extension. Keep in mind, whenever you're on your stomach and you're lifting your upper body up, make sure to have something soft under the rib cage, especially if you're slender, because as you raise your upper body off the floor, the ribs are pressing down. So we're on our stomachs and we're going to do one of the many back extension exercises. We keep the arms out to the side. I call it airplane arms. We're going to slowly and gently lift and slowly and gently lower. Everything's done smoothly with control. One thing we see a lot when people are doing this, that they're using their neck. A lot of times the eyes are looking up at the wall, and it's important to keep the eyes looking down at the mat so we don't strain our neck and we activate the appropriate muscles. All right. Finally, we're going to focus in on the hips. So a good program needs to have a variety of exercises that strengthen the major muscle groups with an emphasis on our vulnerable areas, spine and hips and wrist as well. So let's go onto our side and we will perform a few of the hip strengthening exercises. And there are, again, really hundreds to do, but we'll just get a flavor of what some of the exercises are today. We'll start with our basic hip strengthener. We go onto our side. Knees are bent, thighs come out perpendicular to the torso. Using the muscles around that hip, lift and lower. When you're doing this, really think about lifting from the hip. You know, sometimes we start to push the inner leg up and we want to get that glute, outer leg, hip area activated. Make sure your knee and ankle are level, so you don't want to like kick your foot up. You don't want to kick the knee up. Once we can do a set of 10 and it becomes easy, we can add another set and then add resistance equipment to the exercise. Let's straighten the legs out and bring them forward a bit. Okay, we're going to bring this leg a little bit off of the other leg and press up. We'll do this now just with a neutral foot. Start at hip level and end at hip level. Notice I'm not going up very high. You know, I'm not doing a rocket kick. And I'm like pressing and really using that area, hip, glute, outer leg. All right, let's go to the other side, just to be even, especially for those participating. Okay, so let's go on to the other side, one leg on top of the other. Everything's at right angles. We take that top leg, lift it up and back down. And it's a small move. Notice it's just going up like this. It's not going up high, keeping the rest of the body really still. And now let's straighten the legs out. We're going to bring them forward a bit. Let's start with keeping that top leg hip distance off of the other leg. Neutral foot, press up. All right. And one other basic exercise to show you today. And we'll use some medium hand weights just to get some working for the upper arm. So hold on to two hand weights, and we'll be doing, we'll actually start with a bridge. Legs are hip distance apart, knees are bent, hands by our side. We're gonna lift and lower. Um, I wanted to make sure to include this exercise in today because it really gets the underside of the body, a lot of lower back and glutes and some hamstring. But a lot of us are quad dominant. We push up with the thigh and the stomach as opposed to the underside, which we want to strengthen. We already strengthened the core, I hope. And we're gonna, if you want to, you can take a resistance band or a little ball or a rolled up towel. And if you feel like when you do your bridge that you're quad dominant, you would lift and press something together. So if that pertains to you, it's a good way to distract the quads from taking over. Let's add some weights to the exercise. So once you feel you're able to do the bridge, we like to do compound exercises, so our workout becomes very time efficient. So we can do a tricep press where we bring this down and up. But let's say, okay, let's say I can do this. Why not add our bridge to the exercise? When we do a tricep extension, we try to keep the shoulder to elbow pretty still. So really the only thing you see moving is the forearm. And we'll just do a few more. All right. So I think it's time now to do a few stretches. We'll loosen up some of the muscles that we strengthened. I typically start with using a stretch band. We're going to start with a hamstring stretch. Let's place the band in the middle of the foot, pull that leg in. Let's loosen up this muscle. We want to keep those hamstrings strong, strong and flexible, because if that gets tight, a lot of times it starts to tug on the hip, pelvic area, and lower back. So we want nice loose hamstrings. Switch legs. I just do a leg exchange, put one leg in, take the other leg out, pull that leg in. And let's now strengthen the foot, ankle, calf by placing the ball of the foot in the band, press down for the stretch, and point and flex. So, balance exercise is an important component of a good osteoporosis strength training program. When we performed a lot of the lunges in the beginning of the session, that was very helpful for improving balance. But our feet are our foundation. We want to keep them strong, healthy, and flexible. Let's go to the other leg. Flex the foot. Loosen up that hamstring. And point and flex. Let's do our stretching rack. Point the toes, reach overhead, lengthen. We're trying to create space in between the vertebra. We don't want compression. So we lengthen out, let go of the band, hug the knees in, place the feet down, and we'll swivel side to side.